Hey, everybody. Tim Kirk coming to you live with Real Men Parent. I wanted to talk to you about a topic near and dear to me today. But before I do that, let me know where you're watching from. If you're watching live or if you're watching the replay, the reason I ask you that is because I want to know if you're watching live, then we can interact, we can talk, if you have questions, I can answer those. If you're watching the replay, you can also put that in the comments that you're watching the replay, and then more people get to see this. Hopefully, it'll help somebody out there. So, today I want to talk about what it takes to be an at home dad. Really, you need three things, in my opinion: you need mindset, you need skill set, and you need tool set. Today, I'm primarily going to focus on some of the mindset pieces, not all of it, but just a little bit that goes into what you need to become and to kind of maintain being an at-home dad. So, with that in mind, let's get started here. So, the mindset that for me, what worked for me was that I wanted to help my family. Uh, Now, obviously, I was helping my family before when I was in the workforce. I had my daughter, um, and I continued to work, and my wife worked full time, and that was going okay, but not great, right? Because it seemed like you work all week, sometimes on the weekends, you collect your paycheck, you try to cram everything in on the weekends, and then you're exhausted, and then you do it all over again the next week, right? So it was kind of tough existence for me. So when when I decided to become an at home dad, I felt that I had to explain it, right, and say like it's all about the money. But then once I got into it and I started talking to some other at home dads, I realized it's really, for me, it's about providing for my family in a different way and not in a monetary way necessarily, but more in just being there for my kids, being there for my family, being present with them whenever possible. Also, taking the time to um, understand what their needs are, what my spouse's needs are. Um, Also, recognizing that I need to take time for myself, some of the self care things. So it's really, for me, it's all in my in my mind, right? It's all about the mindset. Yes, I need to have certain skills. Yes, I've invested in or already had some of the tools necessary to be a good parent, a good father. But um, day in and day out, I've got to have my head right. I've got to be tuned in to what's going on with me, what's going on with my family, what's going on with my children. Otherwise, I'm going to have a lot of bad bad days, especially with little kids and maybe teenagers too. I don't have a teenager yet, so if you have a teenager, you could you could let me know what that's like. But um, so I've got an almost 10-year-old and almost 5-year-old. So for me, I've just got to be focused in the here and now, right? Uh, Talk about that quite a bit, and really, that's if you walk away with nothing else today, I hope that you walk away with this. We need to be present um, in any situation, really, but we need to be present for our children, right? That's the whole reason why I became an at-home dad. I wanted to spend more time with the kids. I wanted to teach them. I want to grow with them. I want them to grow up to be productive members of society. So I take the time to listen to them, figure out what their needs are, what's going on with them day in and day out, and then figure out at the end of the day, after I put them to bed, how did I do? Right? How did I do today? Right? That's all part of the mindset of how am I going to best provide in my new role as an at-home dad, which isn't really that new for me now. I'm almost 5 years down the road. Now, I obviously don't do this perfect, right? Parenting is difficult. It's a hard thing, whether you're working or not. And there's going to be those rough days. There just is. I've had plenty of them. The key is how am I going to minimize the tough days and maximize the good, right? So from time to time, the kids change, they grow, I change, I learn, I study, I grow. I figure out things that work for my family. Now, some of the things that work for my family aren't going to work for your family. That's okay. We can still help each other. We can still learn from each other. My goal with these videos is to help you, to serve you. I hope that I'm doing that. But I'll give you an example. I think it was about a year and a half ago, my son, I'd bring him to school, and he'd get, after school, he would kind of be tired, and he just was in that structure because he's in preschool, so he does half day. So he'd kind of be tired and grouchy and wouldn't want to, he'd be in just a groggy, rough mood when I pick him up. And I had to kind of change the way I approached pickup from school, right? I had to look at it and say, like, every day, this isn't working anymore. My routine of picking him up and having him come home, be happy, want to eat lunch, and then do something together in the afternoon. It was starting off on all the wrong foot. When I pick him up, he'd be crying, he'd be angry, he'd be upset, he'd be yelling at me. He wouldn't want to get in the car. It was always a fight. So I decided I needed to change something, right? So I started changing how I was going to approach the afternoon by starting the morning at drop off. Start talking about what it was going to be like when I picked him up, and ask him, where he wanted to be picked up, whether he wanted to be picked up in the car lane, whether he wanted me to walk in and pick him up at the parking lot, and then trying to set expectations a little bit ahead of time. That he doesn't do really well with change, so it just has to be setting expectations a little bit ahead. I can't talk to him about it the night before, or really even a couple hours before drop off, like in the morning when we're eating breakfast. I need to I figured out for him, I needed to talk about it right before I'm dropping him off, and then set the expectation there. When I'm going to pick him up, I need to remind him of that expectation, what we talked about in the morning, and then need to execute on that, follow through. Also paying attention to his needs. Is he still understanding that he's going to be cranky, tired, and grouchy at this time regardless. So I have to understand that he's been following structure all day. Okay, so he's been in this structured set, and he's had to follow the rules, right? He's had to follow the rules of school all day, and now he needs an outlet to let some of that go. And I'm going to let him be a little bit grouchy and a little bit upset, but I'm also going to give him choices so that he doesn't feel like he has to follow so many rules now, because he's at home, he can relax, he can unwind a little bit. So that's kind of what I've structured with him now, and it's been working. I've had to change it. I had to change it this year again, when he grew up a little more, and I continue to have to go down that road and make those changes from time to time and go back and look at it. So that's my example with him. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is that there's going to be good days, right? It's not all going to be difficult. You're going to have some great days with your family. You're going to have some great days with your kids, and it's really rewarding. For me personally, I hope that if you are a stay-at-home dad, that it's rewarding for you too. So, be grateful, right, for the good, and try to have that mindset, that growth mindset for the bad. Like, and maybe at the end of the day, you can go back and look at, hey, this worked. Oh, this didn't work. This was tough. I don't want to do this again. And maybe think about some changes that you could implement maybe in the coming week, coming months. Can't just change overnight sometimes. Sometimes you can, but sometimes it's more difficult than that. So the other two things, right? I'll just touch on those real quick. Your skill set and your tool set. I'll probably talk about those in another episode here of Real Men Parent, but the skills that it takes day in and day out. For me, I have to. I'm doing cooking, cleaning, shopping, yard work, running kids places. Most of you are probably, I'm assuming, probably familiar with that. You let me know if you're not. We can talk about those too. There's some the listening skill and the being open-minded to new ways of doing things. Those are skills, right? You might need to practice those. Also, the tool set. So for me, there's a lot of tools, right? There's a lot of tools out there that can help with parenting. There's a lot of different ways to look at that. You could say, well, the tools I need for my kids are toys. They need toys to play with. They need books to read. Some of you might be into gaming. They need video game consoles. They need, I don't know, maybe they need tablets, or they need TV, right? It's not really my thing. Like, I minimize screen time for my kids, but I do let them watch TV here and there, and movies and stuff. But I structure that, and I try to minimize that. I do more outside play and games, board games, and reading, things of that nature. So you can look at those things. You can also look at the stuff that you actually need. You need, like, maybe you need a special timer for little kids, because kids don't really understand time. So they make special timers. I don't have one to show you, but I have this phone, right? But it has a timer, but the kids can't see the timer. They can hear the timer when it goes off, but they need a visual that shows, like, usually it's like green here. It means it's good. They can time. And then on the bottom, it's red, and they can see the red is getting bigger and the green is getting smaller. And they need to see that. Like, that's a good, tool that you might use with your kids, right? So things like that. But getting back to the mindset, if you think that it's all about the money and just the bottom line, uh, I think you're missing something, right? I think you need to really dive deep into what you're doing as a dad and the impact that you're going to have for on the lives of your kids from now and into the future, and really try to understand your why of why you're doing it. Sometimes we get caught up in what everyone else is saying or doing or believes, and really you got to kind of try to figure that out for yourself. And I hope that you can get there, and I hope you can figure it out. And I'm still figuring it out. That's okay. We can work on it together. And I want to ask a favor of you before I go. I hope that if you got something out of this video, that you would either tag someone or share it with someone who you think needs to hear this today. And I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week on Wednesday. Take care. Bye.